Good evening, everyone. I call the business meeting of November 8th, 2021 to order. Item 1.02, the roll call. Ms. Widener, please.
Mr. Dorr, Mrs. Evans-Brockett,
Here.
Dr. Hallis, here. Dr. Kohler,
Here.
Mrs. Lofton,
Here.
Mrs. Mayers,
She's here on Zoom.
Mrs. Roberts, Dr. Weston,
Here.
Ms. White.
Thank you. Item 1.03, if everyone will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.04 is the reading of the Pvsd mission statement. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally. 1.05, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 1.06, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of October 12th hearing, October 12th, and November 1st board meetings. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 1.07, we will accept comments on any topic. I do see some new community members here tonight, so I'm going to review our procedures for public comment. The Board of Directors of the Perkiomen Valley School District accepts public comments from district residents and employees who wish to express opinions about any topic. Public comments may address the board in accordance with the law and board policy and procedures. Before presenting any comment, each speaker must state their name and municipality of residence within the district and/or the district building where they are employed. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and a timer will be shown on the screen. Opportunity for public comments are included now, and again in the closing section of the board agenda. No speaker will be permitted to comment more than once during each of those sections. The board president shall maintain control of all meetings and may terminate a participant's comments when they are directed personally, abusive, or obscene, and when the time limit has been exceeded. The purpose of public participation is to allow the board the opportunity to hear feedback from the community members. It is not designed for debate or discussion with the board. And when you came in, you were asked to sign up, and we'll start with those that did sign up and then open the floor to anyone else at that time. So first I have Tammy Campley from Perkiomen.
There we go. Oh, yep. Tammy Campley from Perkiomen Township. Just two quick things. The first is I want to thank the district, Dr. Russell, for the fact that the community, the county had recommended that you go ahead and start planning for vaccination clinics so that as soon as the opportunity was available, there would be a spot for families to go with their children who chose to do that. And I really was quite happy to see that the minute that it went green and we were able to get children vaccinated, there was an opportunity to do that. And from what I understand, it's been a great clinic. Saturday went seamlessly from the feedback I've gotten, and I'm excited to take my twins tomorrow night. So I wanted to thank you. And the other thing is just a quick thank you. Not really a quick thank you, but I want to just express, I know tonight's the last night for some of you, and you came into this helping the district, and you landed with a pandemic in your lap, and it wasn't easy, and you were harassed and you were bullied and people didn't get their way, and you dealt with a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years, and I thank you for your service. So Wade Weston, Jean Hallis, Beth Roberts, and Judy Lofton, all of you, thank you for your years of service, and I really do appreciate everything you've given to the district, so thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Campley. Next, I'll invite Tracy Tweedy from Collegeville Borough.
Hi, everyone. So as you said, I'm Tracy Tweedy from Collegeville. I have 2 children in Middle School East right now. And in the same vein as Ms. Campley, I would like to take a minute to express my gratitude to this board before the transition occurs to the newly elected board members. I'm sure it's safe to say that you never imagined what you were going to get handed in your tenure on this board, but you stayed the course during extraordinarily difficult times, and I'm so grateful that you did. And the 9 of you here have worked so hard during completely unprecedented circumstances to navigate this pandemic. And I was so proud of this board the night when you sat here discussing the plans for the 2020 school district. The school year. You carefully weighed everything from having to consider the air filters to how long it was going to take to clean spaces. And you considered all these factors that went into making such a huge decision. As a parent, it was a relief knowing that you were doing everything you could to educate yourselves to make the best decisions for our children. Before COVID, this board took on the difficult task of deciding what to do about South Elementary School and the repairs that were needed there. You spent so much time with Dr. Russell, meeting with the community, engaging, and being really transparent about your plans. And ultimately, you made a decision that was balanced and considered health and safety of our students and the cost and the impact to the whole district. Despite what so many people have said, you always listened to our community and considered our needs. So to Mr. Hallis, Mrs. Lofton, Mr. Weston, and Mrs. Roberts, on behalf of so many parents like me who were able to worry a little less about their children during this crazy time, I thank you for your service to our school community, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Mrs. Tweedy. Next, I'll invite Wendy Ledford from Schwenksville.
My name is Wendy Ledford, and I'm a secretary at Schwenksville Elementary. I would first like to mention that I've been a secretary with the district since 1996, and I'm really good at what I do, and I would like to continue to do my job for the foreseeable future. I'm here this evening to speak for those who are too afraid to speak for themselves. There are many employees who are too afraid to speak at school board meetings for various reasons. Their concerns deserve to be heard. I understand their fear. As president of Pottstown Little League back in 2010, I was known for having the shortest opening day speech in their 25-year history, 2 minutes to be exact. My fear of public speaking was strong back then too. But this is my task now, to make sure everyone has a voice. And now here I am with my 3 minutes and barely getting everything out in time. Let's start this evening with the recent changes to the definition of the words vaccine and vaccination by the CDC. Prior to August of 2021, the CDC's definition of a vaccine was a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease, protecting the person from that disease. The CDC's definition of vaccine now is a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases. Prior to 2015, their definition for vaccination was the injection of a killed or weakened infectious organism in order to prevent the disease. The definition of vaccination from 2015 to 2021 was the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. And finally, the CDC's definition of vaccination since September of 2021 is the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection from a specific disease. Is it possible they changed the definitions after seeing the ineffectiveness of the shots from preventing the virus? When the CDC changes the definition of words based on politics, it makes it difficult to trust the science. We are calling this a vaccine, but in reality, it is an experimental biological agent. I'd also like to share some information from Johns Hopkins COVID briefing from last week. In the United States, there has been a steady decline in both cases and hospitalizations, and the test positivity has also declined and is below 5% overall. With the new treatments being used, there has also been a decline in patients in critical care and on ventilators. Cases are also declining globally. It is past time for us all to lose the masks, stop the assurance testing, and say no to mandated injections of a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune response against this disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ledford. I now invite Aaron Maximilian from South.
My name is Erin Maximilian, and I'm a teacher at South. I would like to remind you that I have been a loyal and productive teacher in the district since 1998 and would love to keep my job as I truly care about my students. I'd like to address the Binax Now tests that are being used for the weekly assurance testing of unvaccinated staff members. Keep in mind that these tests have not been FDA approved and are under emergency use authorization only. The expiration date on these tests being used is May 11th, 2021. The nurses at the testing site claimed they received the okay to use the expired tests anyway, although there was no information available to me at the testing site about ignoring the expiration date. Upon my own further investigation, I discovered that the FDA approved a 12-month shelf life for these nasal swabs, extending the May expiration date by 6 months. If these Binax Now tests have an expiration date of May 11th, that means that these tests will now expire on November 11th, 3 days from now. It is a violation of CLIA obligations to deviate from the manufacturer's instructions for use. Unless there is another box somewhere with different dates, these tests expire on Thursday. What does the district plan to do about those expired tests? What does the district plan to do when staff members appropriately refuse to use these expired tests on November 11th? I do have the packaging right here if any of you would like to take a closer look. As I shared with you last week from the Lancet report, the viral load for COVID is similar in both vaccinated and the unvaccinated. The unvaxxed may experience more symptoms, but will know exactly when they are ill and need to stay home and away from others. This is a good thing and is exactly the way our bodies are supposed to work. Feel sick? Stay home. Vaccinated people may only experience mild symptoms and may simply go about their day while potentially spreading the virus to countless others, since it has been proven that the vaccine does not prevent transmission. This is yet another reason why the assurance testing rules should be equal for all, regardless of vaccination status. I am not worried about getting sick. The date and time that I take my last breath here on earth has already been determined by God. I am not worried because my faith is in the Lord, and I know Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I would venture to say that most unvaccinated staff members are also not worried about getting sick from this virus, as it has a 99% survival rate, and they also put their faith and trust in God. Let me ask you this: where does your faith lie? In government agencies that make a profit from the very vaccines they are pushing? Or do you trust in something greater? Perhaps it's time to really do some soul searching yourselves. Deep down, you know that there is something very wrong with all of this. I pray that you feel the urgency in your soul to seek the truth. It cannot wait. This isn't just about me. Ultimately, it's about our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Maximilian. Next, I have Matt Staffaroni from Collegeville.
Good evening. My name is Matt Staffaroni, Collegeville Borough. I have a son that goes to East and a daughter who goes to South. And I'm here tonight to advocate for the winter athletes and coaches in our district. I've sent you a couple emails over the last 2 months, and I do appreciate the interactions that we've had. I'm urging you tonight to modify the health and safety plans and allow our athletes and coaches, both PIAA and youth sports, to compete in games and practices on our campuses without having to wear a mask. As I understand, the current safety plan approves the removal of masks only for game competition, not for practices, and then requires the athletes to put the mask back on when sitting on the bench. Governor Wolf's mandate under Section 3, exceptions to the mask covering requirement, letter H, it states as an exception, quote, when a child/student is participating in a sports practice, activity, or event, whether indoors or outdoors, unquote. So the governor's order already gives us the ability to change our health and safety plan to include practice settings. I've coached a lot of teams over the past 20 months, held hundreds of practices, both indoors and outdoors, with and without masks. Practices provide a much easier environment to design a safe and effective plan. In addition, requiring kids to wear masks while practicing during an aerobic sport like basketball or wrestling does not seem like the most safe and healthy way to exercise and compete. Kids have practiced and played in practices all summer and fall in different indoor leagues around this county without masks, with little to no spread during sporting events and practices. I'm sure you're aware that today Governor Wolf announced that school districts will have the opportunity to remove or modify the mask mandate for K-12 schooling on January 17th. Fully removing masks today from all of our winter athletes during all phases of competition would be a good first step in moving the district forward in the mask conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staffaroni. That's all that I had signed up, so I'll open the microphone at this time if there's anyone else that would like to make a public comment.
My name is Brianna Hendricks, and I work at Schwenksville Elementary. I enjoy my job, and I want to continue working as part of Pvsd as I truly care about our kids. It was said that we are following Monco's guidelines, and that is why we are testing the unvaccinated. However, you are not doing so. The positivity rate was listed at 6.92% as of October 28th. This would put us in the moderate category, which means no staff testing. The cases per 100,000 is 137.89, which places us in high, which means all staff should test. As you are not following these guidelines, as was stated, it just shows this testing is not about safety, but is a tactic to force your staff into doing something that goes against sincerely held beliefs or medical conditions. This is discrimination. Also, the resolution for assurance testing says unvaccinated employees shall be required to use their available sick days to comply with any isolation requirements. However, vaccinated employees shall be granted up to 3 days of paid leave to receive a PCR test, which are known for their false positives. If this then comes back positive, then unvaccinated employees must use their available sick days until they return to work as required to comply with isolation requirements, yet vaccinated employees shall be granted up to 5 additional days of paid leave for a total of 8 days of paid leave. This is more discrimination, as you are forcing healthy people to test for your own personal reasons. This is discrimination because you're not taking into consideration the unvaccinated staff members' religious beliefs or medical conditions. No one here are medical doctors with access to every staff member's medical history. No one here can see inside a staff member's heart and mind to the relationship with God. The vaccinated and the unvaccinated have similar viral loads and are both able to spread COVID. If we must test, we should stop discriminating against the unvaccinated and test everyone. It is time to stop testing. There are new treatments coming that are showing effective to treat COVID. India's most populated state has been declared COVID-free after widespread treatment with ivermectin. There are treatments for this virus, and it's time to go back to living. I'm not sure if you are aware, but the United States Courts of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit issued a stay on the recent mandates, forcing employees to vax or be tested weekly, citing grave statutory and constitutional issues with the rule. What you're doing is unconstitutional and discrimination, and it needs to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks. Are there any other commenters at this time? Okay, we're going to move on to Section 2, Reports and Presentations. Item 2.01, the Student Liaisons Report. Mr. Seibel and Mr. Schaefer, do you have any update this week?
We have 2 short things to mention. Number one, we want to acknowledge our girls cross country team for placing 16th in the state. That is phenomenal. We are super proud of the girls and everybody who put all the hard work in over the season to get us where we are. Second, our football team won last Friday against Central Bucks East, which puts us in the second round of the district playoffs against Coatesville this Friday. This is my plea for everybody to show up, show out. It's a bit lengthy, but please find somebody to go with. Ask your parents to drive you. Carpool with somebody. We need everybody in the school at this game. This is the biggest game we've had since 2017 when we were in the district playoffs. So this is my last plea. Please come to the game. The boys need it. We've been doing phenomenally, and it is due to a hardworking team, but also a phenomenal student section. So please drive your kids. Drive anybody you can. Just please be at Coatesville on Friday. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Item 2.02, the President's Report. So I want to thank our 4 outgoing board members for their service to our district. Dr. Hallis, Dr. Weston, Mrs. Roberts, Mrs. Lofton. I was appointed at the same time you were elected, so we've been doing this together for 4 years now. It has been a pleasure. This is obviously not what any of us expected, and it's somewhat funny to look back and think of what we thought were crises when we first started. But I feel extremely fortunate to have benefited from the strengths and knowledge that each of you bring to our board. You're all passionate about our community, about our districts, and especially about our students. I know that you will continue to be involved and that we'll continue to benefit from your contributions. Thank you very much for your service to this district. I'd also like to take this time to congratulate our 4 incoming board members. The numbers are not official, but it looks like Mr. Keenan, Mr. Fountain, Mr. Saylor, and Dr. Campley will be joining us at these tables next month. I've already had the pleasure of joining Mr. Saylor for some coffee, and I look forward to sitting down with everyone else individually in the coming weeks. There is a lot to learn as a new board member, but I'm truly looking forward to working with you, learning your strengths, and I'm confident that we'll be able to show this community how we can put this divide behind us and work collaboratively in the interest of all of the PV community. So again, congratulations. And Mrs. Campley's back there somewhere too. And that ends my president report. Item 2.03, the superintendent's report. Dr. Russell, do you have any update this week?
I have one update, Mrs. Evans-Brockett, thank you. All superintendents across the Commonwealth today received an email from the Secretary of Education, Dr. Ortego, and it indicated that Governor Wolf has announced as of January 17th, he anticipates that the Commonwealth's K-12 schools mask requirement, the order that has been implemented by the acting Secretary of Health, will return to local control. It's anticipated, it has not been confirmed, but it was announced today. And this has been prompted by the opportunities for our youngest learners in schools to be vaccinated. So we await some FAQs that the state is preparing and plans to share out, and certainly I'll share that information once received. But for now, I wanted that to appear on the record and be something that the board is made aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. Item 2.04, the solicitor's report. Mr. Subers, do you have any update this week?
I have no report.
Thank you. Item 2.05, board and district committee reports. Is there any board member that has an update? Ms. White.
Just a quick update from our latest assessment committee meeting. We focused our conversation on the data presentation that is to happen at the special topic board meeting on January 24th. The conversation centered around how best to present the information as it pertains to the data from 2020 to 2021 and how to make the presentation more engaging for not only the audience and community that may join us, but also for the board. And that ends that particular update.
Thank you very much. Moving on to section 3, the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as developed on November 1st, 2021. Second. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And section 4, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kolar.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Items 4.01 and 4.02 were both presented on November 1st. Item 4.03. The motion is to approve the following field trips as reviewed and forwarded by building principals and district administration. This is to approve a high school wrestling trip for 15 to 18 students at a cost to the district of $1,500, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Mrs. Lofton.
I have a couple questions about this. Actually, my first question is, as I was reviewing the application, it says it's not a co-curricular trip. So if it's the wrestling team, I'm wondering why it's being presented as not being a co-curricular trip.
I would have to look at that again, Mrs. Lofton. I apologize if we missed that. It is, coming to the board because it's an overnight trip. Co-curricular usually implies that there is some level of academic piece to it as well.
Okay.
But I could look at that.
Okay. And then my other question is, it's my understanding from some of the information that's been shared with the board that there is a disparity in as far as what fees students are charged with various different activities. And it's still not clear to me if there's any rationale for why students on the wrestling team are not asked to pay out of pocket for their overnight trips, but students who are engaged in other co-curricular activities that have overnight trips are being asked to pay out of pocket. So is there an intention from administration to no longer be charging students out of pocket for overnight trips? Or I'm still just not sure why this one's coming to the board for the district to pay for it.
So administration certainly has intentions right now to review the fees and the expenditures on the part of our families, the fees that they incur to participate in activities. And why this particular trip is supported but others may not be this year is based on our past practices right now that have been prompted for us to review. So the ad hoc committee that's been developed as a subcommittee from the finance committee is planning to look at that. These monies were budgeted as part of the athletic accounts, the athletic budgets, which is why right now they are proposed to be covered. Not all activities are necessarily covered in, for example, a principal's budget. But what we plan to do is really explore what's out there, what does it cost, how have these costs changed over the years as I'm beginning to explore what some of our participants are paying. It is eye-opening, and it's changed over time, as has the contributions by our booster clubs, which also is another factor to consider in all that goes into which fees does the district cover for which activities, which students. And that's really what we've set out to do this year in this ad hoc committee's work. So we're planning to explore that.
So, for example, this year, the Wallops Island field trip that the environmental science students go on as a part of their academic program, they're still being asked to pay out of pocket for that overnight trip.
I'm looking at Mrs. Smith. I'm not exactly certain. I know they fundraise. I'm not sure how much comes out of their pocket. It looks like Mrs. Smith may have some additional information. I'll defer to her.
I can certainly look up their field trip application form, but I do recall, Mrs. Lofton, that yes, the costs for that overnight trip was passed on to the students. Now, they may fundraise so that it's not out of their immediate pocket, but the cost is passed on to the students, and I believe that's been past practice.
So I personally cannot vote to approve spending district funds for an athletic overnight trip when we're academically not funding our overnight trips for our academic activities. So I would like to motion to amend this that we approve the field trip but at zero cost to the district.
We would need a second on that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on the amended motion? Dr. Weston.
I'm still, I don't know, it seems to me that this is if, as you say, it's a budgeted expense in the athletic department budget that must have gone through some level of approval for that expense at the department level. So I don't feel really comfortable second guessing on the, on how the athletic department uses its funding. I understand that we are asked to approve the overnight aspect of this trip, but I think, like I say, I don't know that I feel comfortable second guessing the department on what I assume is an approved expense, that they've already gone through some level of approval.
Is that the case? That this is not an actual, when we're looking at this, we're not actually looking at an additional $1,500 out of the budget, but it's actually, cost to the district is $1,500, but in essence, if it's already approved in the budget, the cost to the district is,
Well, it's still $1,500.
it's still
just-
$1,500.
It has been budgeted.
But it has been budgeted, so I think I can understand what Mrs. Lofton is talking about. It's not necessarily the expenditure, it's the disparity between what we're saying okay to. And I know I'm not going to be here, but is there a way to table this until we have additional information in regards to any other trips that we may be interested in funding in the future, especially academically based trips?
Do we have a sense of when they would need to be able to register?
I'm not aware of that. The trip is December 29th, so I'm going to assume that there might be some registration time period that you have to register by. I'd have to ask Mr. Felty for that.
I see that this doesn't include a registration. They're not asking for a registration fee as part of this. Do we know why that is?
I do not. I'm assuming that Mr. Felty, maybe there's not a registration fee that to actually participate for the students. He just, he completed the form and we reviewed it twice, indicating that that is not included in the costs.
Ms. White?
I think that making the point of not approving or tabling this particular trip, which the athletic department had the foresight to budget for, I don't feel as though that does right by the wrestling team. I do, however, truly support the idea that academic overnight trips, such as the one you mentioned, should be funded by a budget as well. So I would rather see this move forward and not use it to set an example, but reevaluate and adjust the problem as opposed to stonewalling this.
Mrs. Lofton?
So my thinking on it was that I want the wrestlers to have the opportunity to go on this trip, and that was why I suggested that we amend it, that the cost becomes the student's responsibility, just as it is for so many other trips that are happening, until we can come up with, or the future board is able to come up with a systematic approach to all these different activities that really is equitable to all our students. Because again, I want our students to be able to participate in this. I would hesitate to table it because I imagine that they do want to book the hotels. It looks like the fee for this is for the hotels. I just really question why this is the one overnight trip that the board is being asked to pay for when there are so many that are happening.
So currently, the motion in front of us is an amended motion to approve the trip at a cost of $0 to the district. Any board member that has not commented at this time, is there anything that you'd like to add before we vote? Dr. Kolar?
I was just going to say, same thing that Ms. White kind of said, that, while I kind of disagree with this $1,500 cost to the district, I think at this point in time, being that the trip is next month, I would hate for any wrestler to not be able to go because they were probably under the assumption that it would be funded. But I do think moving forward, this is a issue that has to be examined because I've seen the same thing where many other students, other clubs, other activities, they pay out of pocket for these things. But I don't want to halt any wrestler from being able to participate because we've decided to discuss this now a month before this trip since it has been budgeted for. So I would prefer that we go back to the original motion, but also as a board and as a district agree to examine this more closely.
Right now, the motion is to amend, so we're not approving the amended motion. This is a motion to amend. We'll vote on that. If that fails, then the original motion will be back on the table.
So,
I think Dr. Russell has some information for us.
So what I wanted to offer is that administration may look into, for example, all the academic field trips that are scheduled for this year and come back to the board next month or previous to next month with a sense of what those total costs are. We were chatting today and discussing possibilities with some of the funding we've received through the pandemic and those resources about how we can continue to offset costs to engage our students. And there's been monies that have been dedicated through ESSER. We also have some other grant funds we discussed today from the Lukens Foundation, for example, that are set up to engage students in school. So we are reevaluating what may be possible. So I'm wondering if it would be helpful if administration came back to the board with some more detail about what's planned for this year, what will it cost, what can we offset across the board, so that you consider moving forward with this wrestling trip, but we'll bring to you some of the other things that are scheduled to happen. I agree with Mrs. Lofton's point that we need to examine this, and it's been some time since we've really taken a close look, and things have changed over time. So we can come back to you with some detailed information to evaluate if that would be helpful.
Ms. White?
I just would ask that we make it retroactive, though, to the beginning of the school year. I don't know what's happened up to this point, but that to me would be the most fair for the families that have perhaps had expenditures from August to now.
Okay, so we are voting on whether we are amending the motion. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor of amending the motion? All those opposed? Okay.
Main motion's on the floor.
So the main motion is still on the floor. So all those in favor of the motion as originally presented?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we will look for more information from administration next month.
Okay, so moving on, items 4.04, 05, 06, 07, and 08 are all on consent, so that concludes section 4.
Thank you, Dr. Kolar. Moving on to section 5 on business, Mr. Dorr, please.
Thank you, Ms. Evans-Brockett. 5.01 was a finance update last week. There was no grants and donations. 5.02, 5.03 and 4 are on consent. 5.05 is a change order. The motion to approve a change order for Gilmore and Associates, New Britain, PA, to conduct additional study information for the south circulation issue, the high school pork chop, the campus and KG Road intersection in the amount of $3,800. And I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
5.06 and 7 are both on consent. Action was taken for 5.08 last week. 5.09 is a new item. It's a motion to approve a municipal lease with TD Bank for 3 Ford F-350 pickup trucks approved last week at a total financed amount of $121,935, pending final review by the business office and solicitor. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
5.10 was done last week. 5.11 is a new item. It's a motion to approve a transfer of $852,000 from unassigned fund balance into fund balance committed for capital projects effective June 30th, 2021. And I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that is my section.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. Moving on to Section 6, Payment of Bills. Dr. Weston, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Item 6.01, the ratification of bills and payroll and the authorization of payments. The recommended action on this item is a motion to ratify the payment of bills and payroll as per the list submitted for the period ending October 31st, 2021, and to authorize the payment of bills on the check and voucher registers submitted for October, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6.02, the approval of the treasurer's report and financial statements. The recommended action on this item is a motion to approve the treasurer's report and financial statements, including summary of cash and investment accounts as prepared by the administration for the period ending October 31st, 2021, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that ends Section 6.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Section 7, Professional Personnel. Ms. White, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. 7.01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all on consent. 7.09 was an action taken on November 1st. 7.10 is on consent. 7.11. The recommended action is a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement on the terms and conditions of employment between the Perkiomen Valley School Board and the Perkiomen Valley Education Association, PVEA, beginning September 1, 2022, and remaining in force through the day prior to the start of the 2026-2027 school year. This is a 4-year contract, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
7.12 and 7.13 are on consent. 7.14 is a recommended action with a motion to approve the provisional employment of the following administrative personnel pending fulfillment of all statutory requirements. I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Willis is here with us tonight. Congratulations and welcome to Perkiomen Valley.
I was going to echo what Mrs. Evans-Brockett said. She sort of,
Stole your thunder.
it's just a ditto. But really, congratulations, Mr. Willis. We're really pleased to have filled the role in this position that's been open for some time, and welcome you warmly to Perkiomen Valley. Look forward to working together. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White.
And that ends my section, right?
And we'll move on to Section 8, Support Personnel. Mrs. Roberts, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. 8.01, 8.02, 8.03, 8.04, and 8.05 are all on consent, and that concludes Section 8.
That is a way to go out, Mrs. Roberts. Governance, since Mrs. Mares is on Zoom without the best audio, Mrs. Lofton, can I ask you to take this section, please?
Sure, thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Section 9.01 is the first reading on policies. We have, the following policies are presented for a first reading. 115, Career and Technical Education. 127, Assessments. 130, Homework. 137, Home Education. 210.2, Medications. 230, Public Performance by Students. 231, Overnight Trips and Class Trips, which has a recommended title change to Social Events and Class Trips. And 915, Booster Support Organizations. Are there any questions about any of these policies? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. That brings us on to Section 9.02, which was on consent. And then 9.03, action was taken last week, and that concludes my section.
Thank you, Mrs. Lofton. That takes us to Section 10 on closing items. 10.01, we're going to accept comments from the audience with the same guidelines as before. And I'll start with Jason Saylor from Skip Back, please.
Push. Jason Saylor, Skip Back, Pennsylvania. A few weeks ago in North Penn School District, at one of their school district meetings, there were some parent concerns about some books that made their way into the school libraries. Those concerns obviously went wide on social media and made its way to aspects of Perkiomen Valley in commentary that those books didn't exist in any of these school districts. And there was a lot of commentary that there was a lot of misrigosh, which is a Yiddish term for a lot of angst in the community for something that didn't happen or wasn't affecting here in Perkiomen Valley. But the point of the matter is that one of those books is located in our high school yearbook, high school library. So there are concerns by parents in this community, and those concerns should be taken seriously because they're real, they're not ghosts, they're not phantom. I want to also bring up an issue that happened in Upper Merion. I bring up the issue to ensure that this issue never happens in Perkiomen Valley. Upper Merion wound up doing a very really cool future-ready strategic plan steering community access with a STEM project with flying the what are those things called? Flying the little airplanes that go up. And they were teaching kids how to build the airplanes. They were teaching kids how to fly it. They were also teaching how to do the computer aspects of it. But what was wrong with that process was they decided to have a after-school activity for 24 members, and those 24 members had to be of a certain persuasion. The school board said the board communicated that they did not believe in restricting school programs by race or gender and understand that their miscommunications were dreadful. These issues of discrimination and segregation are happening in Pennsylvania. They're not mistaken. They're happening in areas where in York, Pennsylvania, they're removing books because they don't like the books, and those books belong in those libraries. The decisions made by the school board in York, Pennsylvania was abhorrent and it was wrong. Removing books because they don't like the books is not anything anyone should be doing. But there's also the issues for the parents and their concerns in North Penn and in Wissahickon and in Cheltenham, that there are also books in our libraries that give parents a step back and want to know how those things get there. And the decision made in Upper Merion to have this great program and restrict the program to people of one persuasion or of one gender is nothing that should be happening in our school boards. It should not be happening in our school districts. It's happening in Pennsylvania, and it's happening in neighborhoods around us. And these issues that parents bring up, although some find it funny and comical, they're real. And we need to make sure that in our school district, we never tell someone they can't do something because of their gender, because of the color of their skin. We should be including everybody and ensuring that Perkiomen Valley leads the way for the rest of the state to see how things should happen correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor. Robert Liggett from Perkiomen Township, please.
Good evening. Of course, I had to speak tonight. Sorry, Matt. The reason I definitely wanted to speak at the end of this meeting is I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the 4 members that are going to be leaving us tonight. I've grown to know all of you in one way or another and am so grateful for the service that you provided here. I hope that the incoming people that are going to be taking your seats will look at you as a guide for how to serve on a board. Because me as just a member of the public have been able to engage with each of you on the board and feel listened to, and to know that my voice means something. And I know that when I send you the email, no matter how long-winded it is, which I'm even worse in emails than I am on Facebook to the new people that are coming in, I really appreciate that. And I have a vision for this future where we're going to move forward regardless of what these results are, regardless of what's happening in other school districts. If we focus on what we're doing here and with each other, we're going to move forward regardless of what the letter is at the end of your name. Let's all strive to be independent and to look at the issues in front of us. And you four members have done that consistently, as has the rest of the board. I know some people think that this board is a travesty and it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Well, I got something to tell you. I look around at other districts and I'm very proud to be a parent at Perkiomen Valley. I'm very proud to have had all of you represent our interest to each other and to take seriously the things that were there. Just tonight, Mrs. Lofton, on her way out, decided to bring up whether or not supporting an athletic event compared to an academic one financially was fair or not. That was a great discussion, and I'm glad that we were able to do that. And thank you for doing that on your way out, because that's going to help us in the future. Just like when you guys leave this board, I'm sure you're still going to help us in the future still, because I don't think you guys are going into a hole. So the seats are warm next to me out here. Thank you again for your service. Wade, as always, it was a pleasure, and I'm really glad to have gotten to know you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. At this time, I'll open the microphone if there's any other commenters from the audience. Seeing none, that takes us to item 10.02 and comments from board members. Mrs. Roberts.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans Brockett. Wow, I can hardly believe it. It's November, and November is for Thanksgiving. And so I just want to say thanks to a number of people who have made the last 4 years so full, so happy, so terrible. It's been very hard. It's been extremely hard. I do wish the new board members an easier go of it than what we going out have endured. But I want to say many thanks to Dr. Russell, who is without question the hardest working superintendent I've ever experienced. People, she never goes home. She never takes a break. I'm not convinced she sleeps. I have never reached out to her and not gotten a response within hours, whenever, evenings, weekends, whenever. This district truly has a treasure in her. She is a calm and reasonable voice in the middle of chaos. I'd also like to give many thanks to Mr. Weaver and Ms. Hurd. They are truly the fulcrum upon which all our decisions are weighed. And whenever we needed anything or wanted anything for the benefit of our kids, they made it happen. They found a way to put the funds behind it. We haven't had to raise taxes inordinately or at all in order to get the very best for our kids and staff. They are wizards, and I invite them to come to my house to search the couch cushions because I need a new car. Many thanks to Karthik Ganesh, because he was the driving force behind getting a laptop into the hands of every child in this district, as well as building the infrastructure to connect us all. Without him, last year never would have happened at all. No learning would have happened. Virtual learning wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but if not for Mr. Ganesh, none of us would even have had a choice. It just wouldn't have happened. Many thanks to Mr. Subers, who kept us on the straight and narrow and always made himself available to advise and counsel. His reliable guidance was something we always counted on. Many thanks to Mr. Dean Miller and the entire security staff for being so attentive and keeping us safe. Because of you, I've been able to feel secure even when things were decidedly not safe. Many thanks to all our principals and administrators. You have no idea how appreciated you are and how much we rely on you. Thank you for dealing with everyone you touch with respect and wisdom. Many thanks to our entire professional, paraprofessional, and custodial staff. You all stood up and stepped up when we needed you, and I couldn't be more grateful. You are all the superheroes, the rock stars, the eighth wonders of the world that we needed. And you never disappointed us. We challenged you, and you met that challenge with grace, hard work, and skill. We all learned so much from you. Many thanks to our extraordinary students, from the littlest to the eldest. We are aware of how much we asked of you, and you never once let us down. Not once. I hope you understand that you are never forgotten or ignored, and how much you have been the center of our universe and the heart of our hearts. If you ask any school board member why they do what they do, even when it's hard, I can guarantee you that everyone would say, for the kids. That's a no-brainer. Many thanks to my mom squad, Allison, Erin, Tracy, Katie, Diana, Amanda, Christy, Manny, Nina, and all of you too many to name. You reached out, you helped a sister out. You are more appreciated for your unfailing awesomeness than you know. Thank you. And I just would like to say there, the community support is so important to what we do. I encourage you that if you think a school board member is doing a great job, reach out and tell them. And finally, many, many thanks to my fellow board members, Mrs. Evans-Brockett, Dr. Kolar, Ms. White, Dr. Weston, Matt, Mr. Dorr, Ms. Mayers, Ms. Lofton. It has been, without question, one of my greatest honors to serve alongside you and to be a one of 9. You have all been the best that anyone could ask for. And most especially to Dr. Hallis, who always had my back, and whose contributions will probably never be fully appreciated because you're too quiet about them. But be assured that I know, and you have my respect and support always. It has been a wild ride. I learned a lot. I value and am grateful for every lesson, and I am grateful for the opportunity. And I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Any other board? Dr. Weston.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to address the community one more time. First of all, to the members of the Perkiomen Valley community, I'd like to express my profound thanks. It has been both an honor and a privilege to serve this community as a member of this board. My motivation in running for school board was to help the students of this district to have as good a public school experience as the one I had growing up, and I hope that I've lived up to that ideal. I'm very proud of the actions that this board has taken over the last 4 years. We've made improvements to our facilities and updates to our curriculum and programs that have helped to move the district forward and make PV one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, school districts in Pennsylvania. The COVID crisis gave us an unprecedented challenge, and I realize that some of the things that we did to manage that crisis have not been popular. But I believe we did what was necessary to move PV forward as a school district and to give our students the best education possible during an unprecedented public health crisis. I hope at least, that most of the community understands this. I continue to maintain that PV handled the COVID crisis as well as any school district in Pennsylvania. I will always maintain that. To the students, faculty, and staff and administration of PV, Dr. Russell, Mr. Weaver, Mrs. Smith, Dr. Boyd, Mrs. Hurd, Mr. Ganesh, and others too many to mention, I'm thankful for the opportunity to work with you. You are who have made the PV the great school district that it is. I'd like to echo what Mrs. Roberts said with regard to Dr. Russell. I don't know where you get the energy. I thought I knew people that worked hard. I thought I knew people that were dedicated. I did not know what hard work and dedication were until having worked with you. I'm tremendously impressed, and we are fortunate to have you as our superintendent. I'd also like to express my admiration for Mrs. Lofton and thanks for her 3 years of board leadership. You've been the driving force, I believe, behind most of this board's accomplishments over the last 3 years. Your energy, or your last 4 years, your energy and dedication of a board member will be greatly missed. I had hoped to serve a second term on this board. My campaign partner, Mr. Bob Liggett, and I worked hard to get our message out last spring, but the votes just didn't go our way. I'd like to express my thanks to those in this community and on this board who supported us in the primary, and I'd especially like to thank Mr. Liggett again for running with me. We gave it a good shot. I'm sorry that I won't be a member of this board after December, but that doesn't mean I will not stay involved. I will continue to make my voice heard as a member of this community, and who knows, you may see me back here again one day. To the members of this board, both who are remaining on the board and who are coming in, I ask that you keep this thing in mind, that out of all of the institutions that serve the community, the public school is the one place where the entire community comes together. Please think about that. We work, shop, play, worship in 1,000 different places, but everybody comes together in the school. You as a board need to encourage that coming together and maintain that spirit of unity, while keeping in mind that the real strength of community comes from diversity. Diversity and inclusion are not things to be feared. Equity does not mean taking things away from some to give them to others, and encouraging those who may have been underrepresented in an area and giving them opportunities to experience activities and learn in those areas. That's not discrimination in any way. That's encouragement. That is giving people opportunity to do something that they may not have been able to see themselves doing before. That is not something to be feared. That's something to be encouraged and fostered. All of us together are stronger than any of us. And by appreciating and celebrating our differences, we will come together as a stronger community. Please keep this in mind as you take your places as leaders for the entire community, not just those who voted for you, but everyone. Once again, my thanks to the PV community for their trust in electing me to this board. It's you that I was elected to serve, and I did my best to live up to your trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Mrs. Lofton.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Rocket. I ran to serve on the school board because of my solid faith in the value of public education as the backbone of a strong community, and it has been an honor and the privilege of a lifetime to serve on this board and with the people sitting around this table with me and the administrators who are running this district. The decisions that we've been faced with have been incredibly challenging and humbling. And I've learned so much as a board member about the value of grace and respect and leadership. And it has been wonderful to have this team of people to be working with as we have all been on this journey together. And I'll echo everything that's been said about Dr. Russell. You email her at 11 o'clock at night, you get an answer, and then at 5 a.m. you'll get another email from her about something else. I don't know how much coffee she can possibly drink, but it truly is amazing, and she's just such a wonderful person to work with. I'm going to miss you all. I'm going to, hopefully you will be seeing me around again too. And I'm just really, what's been so exciting about this past year and a half is how many more people have become engaged and involved. We have had board meetings where there is not a single community member in attendance, and now what's so exciting is that people know what happens at the school board level. So many more people are engaged. So many more people are caring about what is happening with regards to their children's education. We've seen such an uptick in involvement with the board and with our committees, and that's a good thing for our district. The more involved people are, the more people who are caring about their children's education and wanting to have a voice in their children's education, the stronger our community is. And I applaud our community for working together and facing the tough decisions together, and I'm very excited for our new board members. Congratulations, and I wish you all the best as you work to serve the community.
Thank you, Mrs. Lofton.
So I know everybody wants to go home, so I'll just keep it brief and just say that, there's a lot of great and good people here. Keep up the good work, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Dr. Hallis. Anyone else? You want more? Just want to make sure I give the opportunity. Okay, item 10.03, notice of video recording disclaimer. Per policy 006.3, all video recordings are subject to the following disclaimer. The opinions expressed by any members of the public do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of School Directors of the Perkiomen Valley School District and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of School Directors of Perkiomen Valley School District hereby expressly disclaims any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public. Any unauthorized rebroadcasting of any video, audio, and/or still image of this meeting is strictly forbidden without the written permission of the Board of School Directors of Perkiomen Valley School District. Before we adjourn, I will say that we had executive session prior to tonight's meeting for the purpose of real estate. And check out our calendar. We have a number of committee meetings coming up this month. Good night, everyone.